Your Excellencies, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to this, the 13th annual City Week.
It's enormously encouraging to see the environment and sustainability at the top of the agenda as we kick off this year's City Week.
It's fitting that the agenda for the opening day of City Week is focused on climate change, green finance and sustainability. It is both the most significant risk and the biggest opportunity for financial services today. It's a great event in convening all different aspects of the financial services sector, whether it's government and the regulators or the businesses that make us such a great financial centre.
Central banks cannot be the only green game in town. They cannot replace sound public policies and corporate transition plans.
Has the risk-reward ratio changed particularly, leaving aside what's going on with interest rates?
Well, I think the good news is that technology improves every day. Bear in mind, we have to apply it the whole time, and it gets better over time. So clearly, you can see that in wind farms and solar farms. Compared with the way it was even 10 years ago, risks are down heavily. Risks are very high in areas of carbon management, which is the big thing we have to do. We have to get carbon out of the system, especially as we're burning oil and gas, and we will do so for quite a long time, because there is no choice. There's no choice because we spent so much time talking and not enough time doing. I think the answer is lots of incentives all pointing in the right direction, but with very different flavours depending on local circumstances, are needed to encourage more investment.
Creating a standardised set of questions that we ask consistently across the financial services industry so that we can benchmark our progress and begin to understand who's making progress and what the positive impacts are of decisions that we make is vital to getting this flywheel going.
What about cyber security in particular? There seems to be a bit of grumbling from some of your customers that it's being excluded from some policies.
What we're trying to do is get our arms around cyber risk. One of the brave things the insurance industry does is put a price on a risk it doesn't yet fully understand. And this is, of course, an emerging and developing risk for our customers and for us. And so over time, as we understand things better, we're trying to compartmentalise the risk and make sure, of course, we put enough capital behind those risks so that we can pay our claims.
What about digitalisation in particular? I mentioned AI, machine learning. I mean, these are all things that the industry is having to think about very carefully. Where is the UK compared with some of its global peers on this?
I think on digitalisation, there are two parts to it. If you're talking about digital assets, I think the UK is a leader in digital assets. We have a thriving industry. Tomorrow will be devoted to digital assets, and you'll be surprised to see the level of adoption from conventional, if you like, financial institutions. We get tokenisation, the fractionalisation of ownership of assets. Then there's the broader issue of the impact of things like AI, and in due course, quantum computing. And later on from that, quantum-powered AI, which is, I don't think anybody fully understands the implications of that yet.
But importantly, we're recognising and we're progressing to a world where we see nature and climate are integrated issues. Yes, we started with climate first, but when you start to unpick climate risk and physical risk and you look at what's happening in the world, you very quickly see a lot of it's manifesting itself in the natural system, the degradation of farmlands, of forests, of natural systems, of water.
The climate reporting journey, though, is a little more mature than nature. And while not everyone has adopted climate reporting yet, I think Mary was absolutely right to remind us that in many jurisdictions around the world, it's voluntary, and that means it hasn't yet started. The nature reporting is perhaps even further behind, but beginning to catch up quickly.
What makes City Week important is the fact that you're bringing together people who are busy in their day-to-day lives, and they're actually making time to engage with each other and share information that others are going to benefit from.
This is the major strategic decision makers in the financial markets and all the supporting industry sector in the square mile in London itself and from internationally. So it is important for everyone to come together to share ideas and look towards the future.
Ultimately, as a G7 economy, the nature of our global footprint is very, very considerable, because ultimately we are using these commodities, these soft resources, to drive so much of our investment and indeed the businesses that they yield from. So it's not that just we should look at the borders of our own Great British Isles, if you like. Ultimately, we are driving so much of this damage globally on a day-to-day basis.
We're committed to being a leader in the fight against climate change. Far from shying away from the energy transition, the UAE is running towards it, because it makes climate sense.
Proof of concept is definitely successful. This is why we are now encouraging, and we are happy that a lot of local private investors, but also international investors are coming, I would say, to invest more in solar and wind farms.
If we want private investors to invest across an economy and to invest again and again for years to come, we need market structure that incentivize them, that ensure that they can earn a decent return on their investment.
I can say that the bulk of the work that we do as a bank is working with our clients on emission reductions. That's what we do, and we've got a carrot and a stick. The carrot is financing for their transition undertakings, and the stick is, if you don't take this seriously, we're not going to be able to do the kind of business with you that we've done in the past.
Well, this has been a wonderful event, and it's my first time here, so I would highly recommend it to others. I saw many people involved in the climate action space that I'm involved in, people that I unfortunately had only met previously in little Zoom boxes, and we had some very substantive conversations, and I feel it's been very worthwhile.
We are going to have accounting standards on sustainability very soon, and they're going to be international, they're going to be very fast, and I think that will help on some of the issues that we've been talking about.
Virtually everyone agrees that climate change is the planet's largest risk. Our industry finds itself unable or unwilling to invest sufficiently in the risk capital required to develop the engineering and technology needed to address climate change. When we think of the extraordinary success through public-private partnership to develop the COVID vaccines, is there not a parallel grand challenge around climate change that deserves similar collaboration?
Welcome, everybody. This is Day 2, Institutional Adoption and Regulation of Digital Assets Summit.
It's really very much worth noting that there's a need for careful documentation and evaluation and study of crypto crises and parallel energy resource crises. More specifically, the environmental impact of certain consensus mechanisms in the crypto space and quantum computing.
This is a wonderful event that brings together some of the most sophisticated regulators and market participants globally. I think that the conversation, the dialogue, the discussion, the issues that are coming forward in the panels and also in side conversations, bilateral meetings, over dinners and lunches, really is advancing some regulatory and legal questions as different market participants and regulators coming together enables us to consider and take into account the approaches that different jurisdictions are taking as we face some of the most challenging issues of our time.
This is not something that's far into the future. This is happening now. And I think it's going to have a relatively near-term impact in terms of whether it's operational efficiency, modeling efficiency, a number of different areas. It is very powerful, and it's a little bit difficult to wrap your mind around how significant the impact is going to be.
Regulators do three things. They protect retail consumers. That hasn't been done. You saw that in the Bahamas. They create financial stability. That wasn't done for crypto. Again, as you saw through the stablecoin collapses and the events in the Bahamas. And then they harness innovation. So, look, that hasn't been done, right? It's been done by this small group of crypto evangelists on the sideline. It needs to become mainstream.
There's a danger that we all run after the same ball. And I like the way Shannon talked about collaboration and needing to come together, all up and down that value chain.
there are opportunities for people to take their traditional roles, but also to look up and down at the roles that we don't traditionally play. So I think there's a small danger that we all chase after the same thing and leave some things underserviced. But it's only through collaboration and the type of regulatory sandboxes that we see here in the UK that we get to address that.
We have seen that over the recent years, the understanding of digital assets as well as distributed ledger technology has really progressing very well, not only across the institutional investors, but also across the corporates as well.
In the future, I think we really want to expand the concept of digital assets much more away from what we currently see, which are crypto assets. Digital securities have all of the benefits of crypto in terms of the on-chain rails and the settlement, and potentially the trading window. I'm not sure if everyone who currently is in asset management will be looking for a 24/7 kind of work environment, but that's something that we can kind of shape over the coming years.
The European Union put something out whereby they said, as we start to kind of really embrace kind of crypto assets and digital finance, their firm belief is that this will add up to 33 billion of incremental value to GDP across the European Union, which, you know, if you take a step back, that's a monstrous amount of incremental value.
First of all, of course, you know, we are in the business of creating, you know, financial returns for our LPs, and this is really done by backing category-leading businesses in different sectors.
So how do you coordinate central bank A, B, C, D, and make certain they have a common rule book as well? I'm sure there are ways of doing this. I think I'm looking to supranationals like the BIS, who will be talking later on today, maybe the FSB. But those are the sorts of things that we want to concentrate on. Those are the frictions that might arise if we're not careful. So looking ahead a little bit, you know, we like to spend a lot of our time thinking about that international harmonization.
We're discussing this too much in abstract terms, in terms of there's a blockchain and it provides certain benefits. It really depends how you implement it, and making sure that there's a certain discipline that the token construct is done correctly.
In some sense, client expectations are moving towards having more consistent global flows. So from a cross-border perspective, obviously, I think that's one big inefficiency from the infrastructure side. I think the second big area is around the move to 24/7. I mean, people, I think, in general, don't understand how far away from 24/7 as an industry we are still, right? So even though a lot of the trades do happen 24/7, there are still cut-off hours and times which sort of put significant amount of inefficiencies on the markets.
We are a provider of technology, infrastructure technology for the financial institution. So exactly, this is the right place for us to be and work with financial institutions, talk to them about innovation around tokenization and all the work that we do.
Nearly a decade and a half since its creation, crypto, that one-time symbol of alternative rebellion, has become more widespread. And yet, so few consumers know what it is, how it works, and what they are getting into. So as this once alternative investment becomes more popular, we need an open debate about risk, mitigation, and the limits of regulation.
Bitcoin markets were not regulated. Regulators could not see the true extent of the risks. It's imperative that these serious risks be managed. We are stronger working together, and we can leave no safe passage for illicit finance, cyber criminals, fraudsters, or those who risk the stability of our global financial system.
The quality of the speakers and the range of the speakers over the last 2 days have been just phenomenal. I mean, you've got a lot of really heavy issues that many of us who deal with issues related to the climate and digital assets are challenged with every day, and it's been very positive in terms of everyone coming together and trying to talk about those issues.
So there needs to be regulatory clarity in the US
And we are very encouraged by what we're seeing here in the UK and what I'm hearing up on the stage from Ian and Emmanuel about jurisdictions that are leading with engagement and not enforcement.
The digital world needs an on-chain digital payment instrument. It might be that the central bank needs to step in and offer its own in order to continue its control of the currency and managing the value of sterling. Alternatively, there are various other solutions private sector solutions that may prevail.
Are commercial banks needed in a future model? I obviously work for a commercial and wholesale bank, so intuitively I want to say yes, we are needed. But the reality is intermediaries are needed, and who those intermediaries are. Ultimately, you're talking about 100 years time. I think about 100 years, I think about 5 years, I think about 10 years, I think about 15 years, and I think at all of those stages, it could be different. And in 50 years time, it doesn't necessarily have to have a commercial bank if a commercial bank cannot evolve.
But I think articulating and creating the spaces for meaningful collaboration that can range from conversation through to experimentation is a really powerful part of what that collaboration can look like.
There has never been a more important time to be innovating, especially in the world of fintech. And so it's terrific to see this topic being addressed here today.
Despite geopolitical shifts, a challenging global macroeconomic environment, and difficult financial market conditions, London remains a world-leading financial centre.
Fintech is about more than just finance. It's about saving entrepreneurs time and money. The UK leads the world in fintech. And this progress is a testament to the innovation and determination of the entire UK fintech sector.
The sooner you can get a handle on the regulatory issues, the sooner and faster you can grow. And together, we can help fintechs and other financial service firms navigate their way through regulation so they can flourish and grow.
We always start off with the reason why. I mean, if you think about all the changes we've all been through as individuals, especially in the last 2 or 3 years and during the pandemic, without knowing it, as a world, we've gone through a digital transformation. How quickly did we go to working from home with all the technology that enabled us? So from an insurance and a reinsurance perspective, you've got to be clear on the purpose and why you're doing it.
Transformation's key, but I actually really don't like talking about it as digital transformation because it should just be the normal course of running your business in a lot of industries, particularly something like financial services where a huge part of what you're making available to the world is a digital product fundamentally.
And the reason we think it's so important is because ultimately if that network is uplifted, it can have a really powerful impact on an economy, but also on the end consumer and particularly small business in terms of what we're trying to drive.
At the end of the day, there is a huge amount of people in the UK who have very thin credit records. They're not really on the system, they don't know how to use digital transformation, they don't even have a bank account in many cases. What we don't have in the UK is obviously a digital ID. We don't have any type of what I call a financial passport. And at some point, we're going to have to take that brave leap forward.
What this has allowed them to do is onboard much more quicker, focus on innovation rather than on building control. So I'd say those are the two learnings that I've taken away more broadly around acting collectively together as an industry, but also keeping that endpoint around your journey in mind.
This is the base basically for the creation of new assets and new forms of intermediation, the emergence of new players and also the development of new analytical tools.
I think that it's very important to do this in this kind of events because that allows us, the regulatory and supervisory community, to engage with the people that is developing in order to transmit our view of this and also receive their views on our activity.
I think the most important thing to say is how key cross-border payments are. We're an incredibly sort of global, increasingly interconnected world, and all that trade relies on the payments. And work has shown that actually cross-border payments are typically, not always, but typically they're slower, they're more expensive, They're less transparent to know when your payment's going to arrive, how much it will cost, and they're harder to access.
I led the session on cross-border payments today. We had a really excellent panel, some really interesting panellists leading some real innovation in this market, some really good insights. It's great to hear from them what their firms are doing and where we think we're going in this market.
Now it's clear we are at a time of completely unprecedented disruption, and it's absolutely right that we focus on how we can enable positive innovation in the economy, as well, of course, as driving it in our own industry.
I think for me, the quality of speakers that you have in CityUK always means that there's some interesting topics that are being debated at a very practical and insightful level.
So we at UK Finance have been saying to the UK government for some time, it's okay to focus on crypto, but in a sense crypto is the sideshow. If you add up the total market cap of crypto markets globally, it's under 2% of the global equity market or under 2% of the global bond markets. So what we need to be focusing on is how we protect the future of the city by tokenizing the capital markets. And in that way protect the future of the city.
Clearly you can see the ambition. Obviously we had Abu Dhabi here, Dubai. I'm definitely sure that next year Saudi will be here presenting themselves. So the whole region is popping up. There's a little bit of competition, so I think people need to find their niches. Hopefully digital assets will be definitely one for us. But I think looking at the country, rich country, family oriented, Islamic finance. I think Islamic finance will be an important element in 10 years' time for sure.
So cybercrime is treated as a tier 1 national security threat. What does that mean? It means that the state takes it seriously, it means that ministers are seized by it, and the full suite of national security tools that's available to UK PLC is brought to bear. It also means that we're blessed with the National Cyber Security Centre, which is truly world-beating in terms of being the technical authority for tackling cybercrime and really for taking some game-changing action with businesses and with the public to try and raise our game to prevent cyber attacks.
I think it's a unique event for bringing together thousands of key decision makers across the industry from a diverse set of backgrounds, from fintechs to banks to regulators, and a great opportunity for them all to network and share thought leadership.